Training camp is knocking on the door. Bills Mafia and ESPN just handed us a full breakdown of everything worth watching once the Buffalo Bills open up shop at St. John Fisher. We are talking a complete defensive identity change, 3 heavy hitter players under the microscope, hidden position battles you probably were not expecting, and to top it all off, a leaked jersey story that has half the fan base either laughing or crying. Let's get into every single piece of it. Let's start with a storyline that towers over everything else this offseason, the total transformation of Buffalo's defense. For 9 straight seasons, this unit ran the same defensive system, the identity built under the previous head coaching regime. That era is officially over. New defensive coordinator Jim Leonard is arriving with a completely different blueprint, shifting Buffalo away from its long-standing 4-3 front and into a 3-4 base defense borrowed directly from his time running Denver's system under Vance Joseph. Here is the honest, unfiltered truth about this transition. Leonard himself has openly acknowledged that his full vision may not come together in year 1. That is a refreshingly honest admission, and it makes complete sense when you consider the sheer scale of what he is trying to install. This is not a minor tweak. This is multiple new fronts, a heavy dose of stunts and disguises, the exact kind of scheme that gave Buffalo fits when they faced Denver in last season's divisional round. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to hire the man who created it, and that is precisely what Buffalo did. Leonard is not walking into this job unprepared. Either he has real coordinator and even interim head coaching experience at the collegiate level. And plenty of football analysts have pointed out that concepts he was running years ago at that level are exactly the kind of ideas showing up across NFL playbooks today. The expectation is that his overall vision could come together faster than people think schematically, even if the roster fit takes a little longer to fully mesh. And that roster fit is a real complication worth acknowledging. 7 players who started multiple games for Buffalo last season remain unsigned free agents as of this preview, sitting out there on the open market with no clear indication they will land in Buffalo before the season begins. That is a significant chunk of institutional knowledge walking out the door all at once. In their place, Buffalo is plugging in a wave of fresh faces. New edge rushers are stepping into starting roles. A new linebacker slots in opposite Terrell Bernard, who Bills fans are desperately hoping bounces back to full health and full productivity. A veteran nickel cornerback was just brought in and given real money to lock down that role. And at safety, one new starter steps in opposite Cole Bishop, representing an enormous upgrade over a position that, quite frankly, struggled through injury and inconsistency for much of last season. But here is where things get genuinely exciting for Bills Mafia. The young talent on this defense is primed to break out under Leonard's new system. Cole Bishop returns as a key piece at safety. And then there is Deon Walker, who is stepping into a full-time nose tackle role for the very first time in his career. Anyone who has watched this young defensive lineman develop knows exactly what kind of disruptive physical presence he brings to the middle of the defensive line, and unleashing him as a true full-time starter could be one of the most fun storylines of this entire training camp. This defense, top to bottom, is going to look completely different than what Bills Mafia has watched for the better part of a decade, and that alone makes camp must-watch television this year. Now let's shift to the 3 players ESPN flagged as the biggest names to watch this camp, and this list is not filled with sleeper picks or under-the-radar rookies. These are 3 heavy hitters who could define Buffalo's entire season. First up, unsurprisingly, is Josh Allen. ESPN's take was that no player in the entire league carries more pressure heading into this season than Buffalo's franchise quarterback. And look, that is a fair narrative given the playoff history, but here is a slightly different way to look at it. Josh Allen is quite simply the best football player on the planet right now. The real pressure this season does not sit on his shoulders. It sits on the pieces surrounding him. Consider last season's divisional round loss in Denver. Yes, Allen turned the ball over 4 times in that game, But Buffalo remained competitive throughout the entire contest, and the play that ultimately sealed their fate was a defensive breakdown on a sideline touchdown. Not another failure from the quarterback. Josh Allen is going to show up and perform at an elite level because that is simply who he is. The real pressure belongs to everyone else in that building. Which brings us to the second name on the list, Dalton Kincaid. And this one deserves way more attention than it typically gets. The single biggest variable determining whether Buffalo's offense reaches its full ceiling this season might not be a new addition at all. It might just be keeping Kincaid healthy and on the field. The advanced numbers back this up completely. When Dalton Kincaid is active and playing, this offense transforms into one of the most dangerous units in the entire league, consistently finishing as a top-3 scoring offense whenever he is available. Health, more than any scheme change or personnel addition, might be the single biggest swing factor for Buffalo's offensive ceiling this season. The third name is Terrell Bernard, and his story from last season is really a story about health, not talent. Bernard was largely unproductive throughout last season, but that decline had far less to do with a decline in ability and everything to do with playing through injury for extended stretches. Remember, this is the same player who earned a significant contract extension based on the level of play he showed in both 2023 and 2024. If he can return to full health this season, there is every reason to expect him to snap right back into that Pro Bowl caliber form that earned him that payday in the first place. Now let's talk position battles, because there are a couple of genuinely fascinating ones brewing that deserve real attention beyond the obvious cornerback and secondary competitions already being discussed elsewhere. The first is at left guard, and this one is a true toss-up. Buffalo brought back one incumbent lineman, but notably did not invest significant money to retain him. Meanwhile, they lost their other starting guard to a lucrative deal with New Orleans, and rather than reinvesting heavily at the position, they brought in a veteran free agent who has started a substantial number of games across his NFL career. On paper, that veteran presence looks like the favorite. But here is the twist. Last season's advanced analytics actually graded the returning incumbent significantly better in extremely limited action, including one standout performance filling in for an injured starter against Pittsburgh, a game where Buffalo ran for roughly 200 yards as a team. Granted, the sample size is tiny, making direct comparisons tricky, but it is enough to make this competition worth watching closely once camp begins. The second under-the-radar battle is at punter, and yes, we are talking about the punter position generating real intrigue. Last season's punter finished 28th out of 33 qualifying punters in yards per punt, a genuinely underwhelming mark that repeatedly put Buffalo's defense in difficult field position situations. Stepping in to challenge for the job is a young leg with real college pedigree, someone who earned all Big Ten honors, won a national championship, and reportedly posted the longest hang time among all Power 5 punters during his college career by a notable margin. His career punting average sits comfortably ahead of what Buffalo got out of the position last season. If he wins this job outright, it could genuinely help flip field position in Buffalo's favor throughout the season, giving that retooled defense a real luxury, forcing opponents to drive the length of the field instead of starting in enemy territory. Finally, let's address the wide receiver room, because this remains one of the most fascinating storylines of the entire offseason. With DJ Moore now in the fold and Josh Palmer hopefully returning for a full, healthy campaign, alongside a productive Khalil Shakir working out of the slot, the real intrigue centers on how everything meshes together. How quickly does DJ Moore build real chemistry with Josh Allen? Can a promising receiver recovering from a torn ankle find his way back onto the roster once healthy? And what exactly happens with Keon Coleman and rookie Skylar Bell as the depth chart takes shape? Even the name Brandon Cooks continues to circulate as a potential free agent option, refusing to fully disappear from the conversation. And if Buffalo decides to keep 6 total receivers on the roster, the 6th spot becomes a legitimately open question. It likely comes down to special teams value as much as pure receiving talent, which raises an interesting wrinkle because whoever locks in that final spot needs to bring something extra on special teams to justify the roster spot. Whether that ends up being a veteran depth option or the hungry rookie in Skylar Bell competing his way onto the field remains one of the more compelling subplots to track once camp kicks off. And speaking of DJ Moore, reports circulating from a well-known NFL Insider podcast suggest he is expected to become a genuine high-volume target, similar in role to what Buffalo enjoyed years ago before their star receiver departed. If that prediction holds true, it could finally spell the end of the spread-it-around approach that has defined this passing attack for the past several seasons. Now, before we wrap up, we have to address the story that has absolutely taken over Bills Mafia's timeline this week: the uniform leaks. Turns out those rumored images making the rounds were completely legitimate. Gray jerseys, a redesigned helmet featuring a much larger, more prominent Buffalo logo wrapping around the shell, and Buffalo essentially confirmed it themselves with a cryptic social media video showing a nickel coin spinning on a flat surface, revealing a release date at the end of the clip. The concept pays tribute to Nickel City, one of Buffalo's historic nicknames alongside Queen City. Reactions across the fan base have been mixed, to put it generously, with plenty of fans wishing the team had simply leaned further into their classic red helmet look instead. Regardless of where you land on the aesthetics, it looks like these uniforms are officially becoming reality. And Bills Mafia will have plenty to say once they officially drop. So there you have it, a completely reshaped defense under Jim Leonard, 3 heavy hitter names to watch in Josh Allen, Dalton Kincaid, and Terrell Bernard. A legitimate left guard battle brewing. A punter competition that could quietly matter more than expected. A crowded and fascinating receiver room. And a brand new uniform reveal that has everybody talking. Training camp cannot get here fast enough. What do you think, Bills Mafia? Is Dalton Kincaid's health really the biggest key to this offense's ceiling? Are you into the new Nickel City jerseys, or should Buffalo have stuck with tradition? Smash that like button, drop your thoughts down in the comments section. And make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss a single moment of Buffalo Bills training camp coverage. Let's go Buffalo, and we will see you in the next one.